I'm telling you, you can see the stuff coming a mile away, and I'm going to play a video from the latest FERC meeting from middle of April, and this is the Federal Energy Reliability Committee or Council or something like that. But you can start to see the issues with the legacy or current model of the grid and everything being connected together.
Emma Whitford with MLEX. I have another executive order question. This was the one from last week on Section 202C of the Federal Power Act. First off, I was just curious if the administration discussed this with FERC at all, if you were in communication with them on it. And then a little bit more in the weeds. So I'm curious how this executive order could interact with FERC's responsibility to determine just and reasonable rates. Are there any concerns there about this, how it could keep plants online, presumably coal plants, and if those costs might
Wait a minute, I thought coal plants were gonna go away.
fall on consumers? Because it seems like the rate setting part of this is what could come back to FERC. So I'm curious, what your thoughts are in the order, if it raises
Well,
any
no, we
concern.
didn't consult.
Okay.
And which is a good thing, because when there's cost recovery filings, it'll come to us. But let me say this. Look, big picture, I've been saying for 4 years that in the RTOs in particular, we're heading for a reliability crisis, and we're
heading for a reliability crisis. Something needs to be done. What's being done about it?
heading for a reliability crisis because of two factors. We're seeing load increases unheard of in years past.
You're increasing the demand.
But on the supply side, so that's on the demand side. On the supply side, we are losing dispatchable resources at an unsustainable pace. It's clearly the case in PJM, clearly the case in MISO.
So you're losing resources, so the supply is going down and the demand is increasing. So obviously something has to happen. And MISO is a grid operator in the middle of the United States, and it also sends power to a province in Canada.
Losing dispatchable resources, a lot of them coal, prematurely. And we're not building anywhere near equivalent resources.
So they're retiring coal plants, which are not good for the environment, and they're not building things at a fast enough rate to replace them. But at the same time, everyone wants to plug into their grid with electric vehicles, Bitcoin mining, and now artificial intelligence.
So the problem is real. The problem is not non-existent. I mean, the problem is critical, and I've been talking about this for 4 years, and NERC has been talking about this. The RTOs have been talking about this. PJM has told us right here in this room last November when we had the thing on co-location. I remember Stu Bressler sat here from PJM and said, we're less than 2 years away from being short on resources.
And PJM was that one where they had a nuclear power plant and they wanted to connect the nuclear power plant to some data center thing. And no, you can't connect it directly to it because the nuclear power plant has to be connected to the traditional grid. You just can't disconnect it from the grid and feed it directly into a data center. There's a whole thing. There was a whole bunch of meetings about it, and then the data center operators trying to escalate it, and I don't know what happened, but then he's bringing up this PJM grid operator.
And, you saw that presentation where in the last winter storm, PJM could still export. Those days are rapidly coming to an end because they're not going to have the resources to export. So the problem is real. The problem of premature retirements is real, and that has to be addressed. And but from the standpoint of 202, is 202 the, because I think you put your finger on it. Somebody has to pay for units that get the 202 designation, or just like somebody in PJM, there's RMR units. And I'm not going to talk about. We have a pending case, so I'm not going to say much more than that. But generators have to get paid. They're not going to run it for free, and they're not going to run it at a loss. So the cost recovery filings will probably come here, and so I don't want to obviously look like I'm prejudging cost recovery, but
It'd be easier for the American people to pay for the additional energy cost. Makes perfect sense.
it's always an issue. Yeah, James?
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, just on PJM, and I think you started to answer this a bit when you were answering Catherine's question earlier, but you discussed in your defense of PJM before, pointing to your concurrence, that a lot of state policies, in your view, were to blame for a lot of what we're seeing at the capacity market. But we're also seeing other, what I would say are widespread problems in terms of delays to interconnection queue approvals, often changing reform rules for the capacity market. What do you view as like the underlying issues that give rise to those types of delays and those types of constant changes?
Yeah, well, okay, one of the things that gets blamed a lot are the queues, okay? And so the queue.
And queues are is you basically you wait your place in line to get the energy that you want.
Queues are the interconnection queues for generators waiting to interconnect.
Oh, I'm mistaken. It's people want to attach generators to the current or legacy grid.
So let's talk about PJM. A lot of the rhetoric I've seen from critics of PJM in the states is, well, you know, the queues are all gummed up, and if the queues would just be cleared up, everything would be fine. No. PJM, first of all, PJM gave me some numbers a couple of months ago, and I hope I remember them correctly, but I think I'll be in the ballpark. PJM has approved for interconnection, I think the number is just below 50 gigawatts of new generation. I think it's just below 50. And it's never been built. They have approved nearly 50 gigawatts, I think maybe in the 40 to 50 range, because I wish I'd known you were going to ask that. I could have got the actual number, but but that's pretty close. Of nearly 50 gigawatts of new generation has been approved for their generation, their generator interconnection agreements, their GIAs. PJM is done. They've approved it. It's not a queue problem. It's not getting built for whatever reason.
So it's not getting built, so they've approved all this power. You sure plug 40 gigawatts of power generation. But I guess it takes time to build all these resources to connect it to the grid. So they should be being attached. Maybe like it takes 10 years or something. I don't know what the time to do that is. I was actually thinking of nuclear power, because that's the cool thing right now.
The generator, the developer can't get financing, doesn't have site control, supply chain problems, whatever the problem is, it's not because PJM has not approved the project for construction. It is a reason totally apart from PJM. Here's another point. Of that 40 to 50 gigawatts, only about 25% of that, I think the actual number is 11.8, that sticks in my mind. 11.8 gigawatts represents actual accredited value under their ELCC, which...
Now, the ELCC, that is the effective load carrying capacity, and it's from what I've read, I'm reading it from a document. The ELCC of a generating resource is a measurement of the resource's ability to produce energy when the grid is most likely to experience electricity shortfalls. So if there's like an issue with the grid and if it's overwhelmed, it's like, what's the guaranteed output in that scenario? And generally with renewable electricity like solar and wind, the ELCC for that is not very high.
Which measures the actual reliability value. So you got close to 50 gigawatts of approved generation in PJM. That's through the queue. Queue ain't the problem. Not getting built. And of that, the real accreditation value, the real, let's call it the reliability value in terms of what we're actually going to get, is only about 11.8.
So they only can guarantee about 20%, slightly over 20% of the load if stuff hits the fan. And for some reason, they're not very eager to build whatever's approved.
So, and by the way, MISO has similar numbers. I got the same numbers from MISO a couple of months ago. MISO has similar numbers. They have a different ELCC computation, but it's roughly the same proportion. And I think MISO's numbers are very comparable to PJM's. They're like somewhere near 50 gigs have been approved, not getting built, and the actual reliability value is substantially less. So it's those who just say, well, if PJM would just clear the queue, it'd all be fine. No, it won't. That's a problem. I'm not. Yes, we would like PJM, MISO, all the RTOs to be able to move their queues faster, and there's good possibility that they can use AI to maybe speed it up, and I know they all want to. They have, look, the RTOs have no.
So you're going to use AI to speed things up, but AI is part of the problem. It's like you're saying, like, if you have a person that's overweight and likes to eat pizza all the time, you're going to fix the problem by eating more pizza. Maybe you just throw AI at it, and AI is the solution for everything now. It's like you can replace everything with AI. The demand's super high. We don't have enough resources. So is that demand really high? Maybe that's why they're not building, or is there something else going on?
No incentive whatsoever to drag their feet on the queues. They really don't. But they've been flooded, especially since the IRA with the subsidies. They've been flooded with interconnection requests, and they're just trying to work through that backlog. But they've approved a lot of stuff that's never been built, not getting financed, and so let's not. That's why I think this finger pointing at PJM and MISO and all is really sort of misplaced in a way.
And from what I've read, there was like documents, like, because the demand is so high for AI generation, there could be ghost data centers where those data centers don't really exist, but they're filing for plans to power non-existent data centers, and maybe part of it, the requests are not real. So if you have something that's not real, and okay, you're approved for the generators and they're not building them, why build generators for something that doesn't exist? Or maybe they're waiting for some technology to come out that's not out yet that will power all of this stuff. Because I guess it takes like 10 years or so to build a nuclear power plant. But it's interesting because they're also canceling out the coal power plants, which is decreasing the supply. And part of the demand is artificial. It's a pun on artificial intelligence. And part of it's real because they still keep making electric vehicles, and they're still building out data centers, and there has to be some company with some advanced technology that could solve this problem in the future. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching.